Hi, I'm Ian McCrowan, and for my final project, I chose choice B, where I will be developing a social emotional story drama exercise titled Wiggles the Worm. Let's introduce our main character and our story's premise. Wiggles the Worm has to leave his home in a forest at the base of a mountain. This portion of the forest has experienced flooding, and the soil is now too saturated for Wiggles to live in. He must make for higher ground up the mountain in order to find a more habitable portion of the forest. Since Wiggles is new to this part of the mountain, he must develop new friendships and supports in order to assist him in building his new home. For a little background and how I arrived at this story, I wanted to talk a little bit about my inspiration. As a lifelong citizen of Buffalo, New York, I wanted to consider the events that occurred in my home city recently. From the racist terrorist attack that claimed the life of 10 citizens at a local grocery store last May, to a deadly blizzard this past December where 47 people passed away. One theme that was evident after each of these tragedies was how the power of acceptance, collaboration, and teamwork truly work in healing a community. I wanted to focus on how one could use creative dramatics as a method of building community and utilizing collaboration to overcome both differences and hardships that are often out of one's control. In order to discuss these themes of acceptance, collaboration, community, and overcoming challenges that are out of one's control, we will utilize the story of Wiggles. Some basic questions that I will begin with would be: who will Wiggles need to befriend in order to learn about the new forest? Perhaps, how will he collaborate in order to build community? And how will he overcome trials and tribulations that are out of his control? We can begin with developing our characters. The first prompt or activity will involve students personifying as many objects or life forms that they can think of that would exist in a forest. A large section of paper will be rolled out for students to begin drawing as many forest dwelling objects or creatures as they can think of. I want to encourage the students to think about the vast amount of elements that make up a forest. Everything from rocks to insects to deer to giant trees can be included. Now we will have a discussion. Once our collaborative drawing is complete, I want the students to look at their drawings and reflect on how many different things may occupy their forest. Then I would encourage the students to begin thinking about how all these various things may be able to assist Wiggles in building a new home and becoming a welcomed member of a new community. Some of the creative dramatic techniques that we will be using first will be mirroring and sound effects. Together, and through side coaching from myself, the class will be encouraged to act out how these various life forms and objects would be able to assist Wiggles. Prompts may include: how would a tree help Wiggles? Perhaps a tree could provide shelter during storms and would be a good location for Wiggles to build his home under. I would then model the action of a tree extending its limbs and flowing with a gust of wind, and encourage the students to mirror my actions and sound effects so we can visualize ourselves as authentic forest trees. Using slower breathing techniques, we will try to emulate both the movement and sound of a large tree moving with the breeze. As we continue, again, we would reference our drawing and pick another object from the forest. Let's say a student drew a deer. I would use the prompt: how would a deer help Wiggles? Perhaps its antlers could assist Wiggles in digging a new hole in the soil to begin the construction of Wiggles' home. Again, I would side coach the activity of having the students act as if they have antlers and how they would move our heads in order to assist Wiggles in digging into the dirt. Unlike the trees, this activity may require more effort since we are digging. So I may model an increased rate of breathing or utilize more aggressive sound effects as a way to allow the students to release some energy or possible pent-up frustration. Some activities may be used as calming exercises, like in the case of the trees, while others may be reserved for more cathartic releases, like in the case of the deer. For our last creative dramatic technique, I will allow the students to experiment with a bit of improvisation. After we have collectively acted out all of our drawn objects from the forest, I will have the students take turns being Wiggles. Each student will get the chance to build their imaginary new home in the forest by collaborating with their classmates who will be taking turns being the various creatures and objects that we originally drew. One student may ask a classmate to be a tree sheltering their home as they construct it with another student acting as an insect assisting in digging Wiggles' new home. Others may choose to have their classmates act as rocks and build a home by literally rolling their peers in a formation that could double as Wiggles' home. Now we can have our final discussion. After each student is able to play Wiggles the Worm, we will again discuss as a group what we may have enjoyed about other students' approaches, or perhaps what we would do different next time if we were to play Wiggles again. I want the students to begin to see all the various approaches to problem solving and how collaboration acts as a catalyst for developing more solutions than if we were to try and navigate a challenge alone. Before concluding, I wanted to reference a couple social emotional learning resources that assisted me in this project. In the Creative Recovery Network, this organization assisted children following earthquakes across Australia. The organization does a wonderful job at presenting a new way of talking about the journey of recovery in a community. The group organized the children to retell the story of an earthquake in a theatrical way. With this approach of having the students tell the story of the earthquake themselves, it made them able to take charge. Essentially, the students were given an arena to explore empowerment while coping with a natural disaster that made them feel powerless. I wanted to echo this approach in my activity by allowing the students to choose through their own collaboration methods how they would cope with a factor out of their control, such as being displaced from a natural disaster. The second resource that inspired my approach was the Po Chi Tam response to COVID-19 article. In this article, students use the story called Frederick, where a family of mice are frantically collecting food in preparation for winter. The story is used as an allegory to explore how the students would prepare themselves for shutdown conditions due to a lethal virus. I wanted to utilize this same approach of allowing the students to find a sense of empowerment over something beyond their control through methods of collaboration and community building. When folks collaborate and look after one another, it forms a bond that strengthens and prepares a community, allowing them to overcome and cope with tragedy. And for my last reference, an article by Emily Kaplan titled How Children Process Grief and Loss Through Play tells us of a kindergarten classroom near the tragedy of the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, where the young students began reenacting the tragedy during playtime. Now, instead of discouraging or dismissing these behaviors, the teacher thought on how this play could move forward in a healing direction. The article references a quote by Vivian Gusson-Paley, which states, "The young child wants to play. He wants to play because intuitively he understands that through play, he will understand more about who he is than any other format." While assembling my own social emotional learning activity, I really wanted this idea of play to be at the forefront of our focus. While students may be feeling the heaviness of tragedies, it is important to tap into an arena that may be more comfortable for them to explore the nuances and subtleties of navigating such trials and challenges. So, in circling back around, considering the inspiration for this project, from the racist terrorist attack to the deadly blizzard, I want to illustrate to students how the acceptance of differences and cooperative collaboration can help a community navigate and cope with tragedy. Many times these tragic events are beyond our direct control, much like Wiggles' original home being flooded. However, by learning from each other and building a strong sense of togetherness, we are able to traverse through life's challenges in a much more successful and long-lasting manner.